breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warm friendly hello. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family and podcast, and today's podcast that is brought to you by DraftKings and Vote Yes on Prop 27. Prop 27 is working to be able to help Californians be able to bet online, much like over half the country is able to. No reason why you should be able to go to cities like Boston, New York, out here, lovely Las Vegas, list goes on and be able to bet. Well, you can't do so out there in the great state of California, and Prop 27 working to change that, and we're working to give you guys as much insight as humanly possible on this podcast, as in segment number 2, going to be joined by Ryan Rothstein. He does absolutely tremendous work over at Sports Radio WIP in the great city of Philadelphia. Get his thoughts on the NLDS at this point. It is all knotted up 1-1 after the Padres got the job done, so we're going to be talking about that. Probably get a few straight thoughts about the ALCS as well, but mostly going to be looking at the National League side of things in the final segment. Going to give you guys my picks and analysis for Astros versus Yankees now, because the Greg Peterson experience is at 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, midnight Eastern time. I'm having to do this before books set up a number, so the DK Nation pick, that is going to be revealed in the AM. Not able to give you a DK Nation pick when there's no numbers up, because I can make a little bit of a blind stab guess, but if you guys wrong on the number, that would be completely stupid for me to give you something that I'm not actually betting, and I do not want to do that, but I will give you guys my thoughts. I've got my handicap, and I've got my breakdown for that, so have no fear. We're going to be touching them all there, and if you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at @JNN_D1. Keep in mind letters EM. The mean does not matter. As per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way, that is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated, and then from there, you're able to fire whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Did not get in any Twitter questions today other than, what in the world were the Phillies thinking in the 5th inning of their game against the Slam Diego Padres? So let's dive into that, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Not going to have a final for you in Yankees versus Astros due to the timing of this, but you do have a final in Phillies versus the Slam Diego Padres, and the Padres, they slammed the Phillies by a count of 8-5. Was looking very good for Philadelphia to start out with. They got a 4-0 lead as they were able to get to Blake Snell. There were a couple balls that probably should have been fielded, as the Phillies, they get a grand total of 5 hits. I would say at least one of them probably were plays that should have been made. So Snell, he gives up 4 runs over the course of 5 innings, pitched a little bit better than that in my opinion. And then from there, bullpen was able to hold it down. Nick Martinez, 2 scoreless innings. Robert Suarez, he does give up a home run as going deep for the Philadelphia Phillies. Reese Hoskins, that is his first of this series, second overall of the postseason. Then Josh Hader, he was able to close the door, give the team a scoreless ninth. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, Aaron Nola, he was far from super in this one, gives up a pair of solo home runs in the second inning, as taking him deep are Brandon Drury and Josh Bell. For Bell, his second home run of the postseason, and for Mr. Drury, I believe that is number 1 of the postseason for him. Might be number 2, but I think that's number 1. And then Brad Hand, he inherited some runners, and he did not do a good job of being able to hold them down. You can tell that was a matchup-by-matchup situation, and he did not do well in the matchup that he was presented. Andrew Bellotti had to get it out of the bullpen from there. Connor Brogdon, a scoreless inning. Kyle Gibson, who at this point is a human white flag for the Philadelphia Phillies, 1 1/3 inning scoreless. And David Robertson, he gives up a solo home run, as well as Manny Machado took him deep. So that was not too terrific for the Philadelphia Phillies. And then when it comes to Yankees versus Astros, too early to call on this one, but I had my DK Nation pick for Wednesday be the over. For anyone that tailed, boy, 9 men stranded on base in the first 2.5 innings, which that's not too terrific. 2-1 is currently where it sits in the bottom of the 6th inning, as we've had a pair of home runs in this. Harrison Bader, he gets his 4th home run of the postseason. He goes deep off of Justin Verlander. Verlander in this one goes 6 innings. Punches out 11. Certainly wasn't as sharp as his bottom line would appear. He really was able to gain his form back after the first 3 innings, but was very lucky to get out of those first 3 innings with less damage than he did. And for James Taillon, he didn't necessarily pitch great either. Gives up 1 run over the course of 4 1/3 innings. He was lucky that he didn't give up more than he did, as Yuli Gurriel, did take Clark Schmidt deep. He gets his first of the postseason, and if you're taking a look at what we've all gotten in the MLB postseason right now, and if we do get a little bit of a change in terms of the final, I will update that on the podcast tomorrow, and then obviously the Greg Peterson experience, that as you guys covered as well. But underdogs as of right now, they are 14-12 straight up this postseason. Home teams are 15-11. That obviously does not count this current Astros versus Yankees game, and the under, we've seen 12 of them, and the overs have actually been taken off a little bit as we've seen 14 overs this postseason. So that's what we got in Major League Baseball on Wednesday, and that's what we're seeing right now trend-wise. And coming up next, got to get a little bit of reaction from the great city of Philadelphia in terms of what we're seeing in this NLCS as we welcome on Ryan Rothstein of Sports Radio WIP on the flip side here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beeson Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Beeson Family Podcast, and it is great to be joined by our guest as Ryan Rothstein does a great job covering right now what is, in my opinion, the hottest sports market in America, given everything that is going on right now, and that's the great city of Philadelphia. For those that love college basketball, as we know, the Villanova Wildcats are going to be getting going in the next few weeks, but I'm sure that there are many people concerned about other things like, the Philadelphia Phillies being in the NLCS. You've got the Philadelphia 76ers that just started their season. The Philadelphia Eagles are the lone undefeated team in the NFL. I mean, the list goes on and on. Heck, there was a good MLS season out there in Philadelphia as well, and Ryan does a great job of covering it all over there at Sports Radio WIP. That is one of the best local radio stations that you're going to find in the entire country. As to be able to follow Ryan Rothstein on Twitter, that is at WiseRye all together. And Ryan, it's always great to have you aboard. Thank you.
Always enjoy our conversations. Greg, a.k.a. G-Unit, how we doing tonight, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing a little bit better than if I took the Philadelphia Phillies in Game 2. That was rough, and just take me through it, because Aaron Nola, there was no question about it. He was getting tagged in the fifth inning, and I do think that it was the right move to adjust from him. I just feel like the Phillies, they were really the victim of having the three-batter rule, because Brad Hand, when he came in, it made sense in terms of matchup, but you knew that when he was unable to get that final out, that it was probably going to be a little bit downhill from there, and that avalanche into a massive inning for the Padres for them to be able to take a split of the series.
Yeah, it really did. On Phillies Twitter, as we like to call it locally, there's obviously a lot of fans that are upset about not just the loss, but its context, right? Oftentimes, almost every time and all the time, it's how you lose and how the fans react to it. You obviously steal Game 1, absolute dominant performance from Wheeler. We can get into that in a minute if you want, Greg. But my point is, you set yourself up to, at the worst, go back to Philly with a split. And then you go up 4-0. Boom. Snap of a finger. You're up 4-0 on the road, Game 2. And we're sitting here saying, all right, we have Nola on the mound. We actually have a 4-run cushion, a lot better looking than what we saw in Game 1. And we won that game. So all should be well, right? Well, obviously wrong. So that stings. I think the game really turned, actually, when Nola went up against Nola. Aaron Nola's brother, Austin. I'm sure a lot of people who have been watching the NLCS by now have heard this story, but, competing against each other, and Austin and for the Padres sort of got the better of them. That turned the momentum. I believe that hit made the game 4-3, and then it got up to the top of the order. That led to a Soto double. Momentum really shifted when that Nola head-to-head battle ended up coming up in that game, and then the rest was history. You bring up Nola getting pulled in the fifth. It's unfortunate, but one thing about Topper, as we call him, Rob Thompson, the interim manager for the Phillies, he trusts his guys. We can dissect his decisions to go to the bullpen, to pull his starter, who he goes to, how long he leaves them in for. But a big reason why the Phillies are still playing baseball, Rob Thompson has made decisions that oftentimes, people at WIP like myself and other people I work with, and fans included, are sitting there scratching our heads. And then all of a sudden it works out for him. So all in all, it's just a brutal loss. But at the end of the day, Greg, the Phillies are set up nicely going back for 3 games.
Yep, they certainly are. And you mentioned it with Zach Wheeler. And I really feel like both pitchers in that game, Yu Darvish and Zach Wheeler, they pitched really well. No doubt Zach Wheeler got the better of that because he did not give up a 488-foot tank shot to Kyle Schwarber, which was absolutely ridiculous. And that and the home run from Bryce Harper were really the lone two forms of offense. So that's very encouraging. But what else I think is really encouraging for the Phillies, and in my opinion, this is the biggest reason why they made this run. It is Bryce Harper, the guy that did not hit the 488-foot home run, but hit the other home run. And I take a look at him just being healthier in general. I think that that's massive for this team because last 35 days of the regular season, he was hitting below 200 with 3 home runs. He's already got 4 home runs here in the postseason. And I think that that's the biggest X factor that the Phillies have going for them right now.
I would agree. I won't say I would also disagree, but I'll get to that point in a second. I just want to touch on Bryce Harper because you nailed it. He came back from the injury. And you're sitting there saying, oh, man, he doesn't look himself. Should he even be playing? How much of his injuries are still lingering or possibly bothering him? You know, September, Harper, he always seems to have some unfortunate luck and bad numbers in the end of the regular season. What's going on here? And now he's absolutely on fire. And the clubhouse feeds off of that, right? Like JT Realmuto on the local broadcast after game 1 just said, he's like, listen, we can all see it in Bryce's eyes when he steps into the batter box. He's always locked in, but he's as locked in as I've ever seen him. That's a paraphrase quote from JT Realmuto. So the guys feed off of that. Obviously, Bryce Harper is the guy in that clubhouse. And not only is he walking around like the guy, but he is most importantly, producing like the guy. And to start this answer here, when I said I would also disagree, what I mean by that is you're absolutely right, as I just said. But it's just been everyone. Wheeler and Nola, listen, Wheeler's a stud. He's an all-star level pitcher. Nola performed like an all-star throughout the regular season as well. But to start that series against the Cardinals with what Wheeler and Nola did, and then they followed it up again with their 2 starts against the Braves, and then Wheeler followed it up again in game 1 against the Padres. I mean, they're pitching right now outside of what Nola did, obviously in game 2. But my point is different guys have gotten their names called upon. They have delivered, especially with the likes of JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber. That ball is still traveling, as you mentioned, Greg. So it's just been a little bit of everyone. That's how you get to a championship series, as you know.
Yep, absolutely. It's got to be so many guys being able to step up, and thus far it has been that way for the Philadelphia Phillies. With Ryan Rothstein, who does great work at Sports Radio WIP, is joining me on the podcast. And now that the series is shifting back to Philadelphia, I have not seen a line on the game, but you got to figure that it's going to be Joe Musgrove against Ranger Suarez. If we get anything else, that would be quite a surprise, as we're going to have an off day on Thursday, and then that game is going to be going on Friday. I think we both agree probably a slight pitching advantage here to the Padres with the way that Joe Musgrove has performed. And surprisingly, Ranger Suarez has been significantly worse at home than he has been on the road. But I think that it is very critical that Suarez is able to lend a little bit of length, because I think that the biggest fear game for the Philadelphia Phillies is at game 4, because we saw it in the previous series against the Atlanta Braves. They had Noah Thor Syndergaard, and then from there, they had to piecemeal things together with Thor only going 3 innings. And I think that that's really the game of fascination for me, how the Phillies handle game 4, because it could be sort of a piggybacking of perhaps like Syndergaard along with someone like a Bailey Falter. I don't think you want to see Kyle Gibson in the game because he's pretty much a human white flag, but I really feel like game 4 is the biggest question mark for the Phillies, and that might be the most critical if they're going to be able to win the series.
Yes, I do agree with that. Have a bomb I'll drop on you in a second. Maybe it's not that big of a bomb, not the Schwarber bomb, but I agree with you there. Game 3 is everything. Right, like game 3 is everything. And I looked at the Atlanta series sort of the same way. Obviously, night and day when you look at a 5-game series versus 7-game. But if you're able to steal game 1 on the road and then you come back with a split, you need to win that first game, especially with where the Phillies are at right now, especially with what's potentially lingering in game 4. But it's going to be a very tall task for the Padres. They certainly have the pitching advantage, but the Phillies in this postseason, they've been able to jump on the opposing pitchers, especially early and really just often at home. The crowd electric does not even do it justice. It's going to be an atmosphere like these San Diego Padres players have never, ever experienced, not even close. So the Phillies, I still believe, have the advantage in game 3. But let's go back to game 1 with Wheeler. All right. And there was a lot of debate in Philadelphia throughout the area, Greg. Why pull Wheeler? Right. He was at 83 pitches through 7 innings. He was absolutely dealing, as you know, and cruising. Phillies got in a jam in the ninth. They ended up getting out of it. But I think Topper, if I have to try and jump into his head, he's looking at Wheeler and saying, you know what? Let me get him out of this game one at 83 pitches with the chance to possibly use him 3 times in this series. So I'm not saying he'd give him the start in game 4, but with that situation that you laid out, I wouldn't be surprised, depending on what happens in game 3, if Rob Thompson goes to Wheeler in game 4 and then has him on the shelf for a game 7. I would be relatively surprised if this series goes 7 that we don't see Wheeler 2 more times.
And I think that that's a very interesting element of it, because we see guys on short rest, they pitch very, very differently from time to time. And there are some guys that they rise to the occasion. Madison Bumgarner, look no further than what he was able to do for the San Francisco Giants. It's a reason why they won the World Series. Meanwhile, you see other guys. I'm a Milwaukee Brewers fan, and I remember CC Sabathia pitching against your Philadelphia Phillies back in 2007 and really crumbled trying to pitch off of short rest as well. So it can certainly go one of 2 ways on that front, and I do think that it is going to be so great what we're going to be getting out there in Philadelphia the next few days. I know that we've talked a lot about the NLCS. I want to get some of your thoughts on the ALCS, because as we are doing this, game 1 is going on. We don't know who won between Astros versus Yankees. You'll know when this podcast is up. But the way that I take a look at this series is it's much more clean cut. I think that the Padres and the Phillies, it's going to be an amazing series. I think we're getting at minimum 6. I just don't think that the Yankees have the firepower to be able to match up with the Astros. I think that they could certainly steal at the very minimum 1 games, perhaps even 2. But when it's all said and done, I think that when it comes to this Phillies versus Padres series, they're pretty much fighting for the chance to be able to play the Houston Astros in the World Series.
I don't know when the last time you and I spoke, Greg, but we I think both pretty much confidently agreed that the Houston Astros are the team to beat. They're the team that's going to be waiting for whoever comes out of the National League. Obviously, here locally, we hope it's the Phillies. But I just agree with you. The Yankees, it's been a great story. Aaron Judge is the obvious story. He just needs to continue to have like a Herculean type of an effort, and they probably need some pitching to be pulled out of their ears that no one really sees coming in order to surprise us. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's a team not named the Astros, but when it's all said and done, I think we can all see pretty much the writing on the wall, right?
Yep, and it's going to be Luis Severino against Framber Valdez in game 2, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And Ryan, I know you're a very busy man this time of year, because if you can find me a hotter sports scene right now than Philadelphia, please do let me know, because it is absolutely amazing what you're getting out there. Like I said, 76ers, Eagles, along with the Philadelphia Phillies. If you want to get really, really nerdy, like I said, MLS, Villanova basketball, you're able to go down the list. So there is no shortage of happenings right now out there in Philadelphia. I know that you do a great job of covering them all, so let the good people at home know they're able to follow you on social media and everything that you've got going on in general.
And the Flyers got off to a 3-0 start. We weren't expecting them to win 3 games all year, but pretty simple, Greg. You mentioned at the start of our conversation, at WiseRye, WiseRye. You can follow me there on Twitter, and that's where I throw out all of the updates, all my shifts on WIP, all of my other appearances on local stations. So just give me the follow there. I would appreciate it.
Ryan does absolutely a terrific work taking a look at the Philadelphia sports scene, and whenever he joins this podcast, always lends tremendous insights, much like he did today. A big thanks to Ryan Rothstein for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming up next, well, we've only got 1 game on the board, but I'll give you guys picks and analysis for this game 2 between the Yankees and the Astros, and a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to get Ryan Rothstein aboard. Does amazing work over there at Sports Radio WIP. Doing a nice job taking a look at all things Philadelphia sports. And boy, no shortage of Philadelphia sports right now, as you got the Phillies in the NLCS. The Philadelphia 76ers season is getting started. The Eagles are the lone undefeated team in the NFL. Villanova basketball is going to be getting started. So it is absolutely amazing what is going on out there in that wonderful city. And Ryan does a great job of being able to gauge it all. A big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this MLB Thursday, which, as you know, is 1 game and a little something I like to call Touch 'em All.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch 'em all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter feed at unit_D1. Due to the way that it's just set up typically with postseason baseball, we just really don't have openers on the ALCS as I record this right now. Hopefully, when I get on board for the Greg Peterson experience at midnight Eastern, 9 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, we're going to have some more set numbers there. But with that said, I've got my handicap for this game, and the DK Nation pick, it's going to be based on what we actually get in terms of the openers. So that is going to be posted up in the morning at unit_D1. It's going to be based around this game. It's going to be one of the sides. It's going to be one of the totals, but I really can't give you guys the DK Nation pick set in stone until we actually know what is going to be out there, because sometimes the bookmakers, they throw at us a few surprises. But it is 961, 962 on the betting board. The Yankees on the road against the Houston Astros, as Framber Valdez is going to be going for the Astros, and Luis Severino is going to be on the bump for the New York Yankees. And when it comes to my handicap of this game, semi-total is 7.6, 7.5 or less. I'm going to be taking a look at the over, and a 8 or higher, I will be taking a look at the under. How about Harrison Bader hitting 4 home runs for the New York Yankees? And this is a Yankees bunch that they were number 1 in the American League in terms of home runs. The Astros, they were number 2. Now, you do have a pair of top 5 bullpens in the big leagues in terms of ERA, and the Astros, they're in the regular season, they were number 1. There are so many guys that you're able to rely upon. Ryan Stanek, Rafael Montero, you're able to throw in there Brian Abreu, all guys that posted up a sub-250 ERA, along with Seth Martinez as well, that got added to the roster as well. Hector Neris has been rock solid, so you've got a lot of good relievers for this Astros team. But Framber Valdez, you can say what you will about the consecutive start streak where he went 6+ innings, giving up 3 runs or fewer. That was 25 straight during the season this year. He's had his biggest struggles at home. 227 road ERA compared to a 354 home ERA. Out of his 17 wins, 10 of them did come on the road. Now, the one thing I will say is that he does a good job of being able to limit hard contact in general, and it's been at his best at home, giving up 3 home runs at 86 and a third innings. I mean, there's limiting hard contact. That's a little bit of luck there as well, considering opponents have been able to hit a 240 off of him as well, considering the Houston ballpark. It's not necessarily hitter-friendly. It's not super pitcher-friendly either. It's a little bit more in the middle, in my opinion, and this is a Yankees lineup that all of a sudden you're getting a lot of confidence. I mentioned Harrison Bader a little bit earlier. They've got Matt Carpenter back in the fold. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is someone that has been able to do a solid job of moving the line in recent games at about a 270 during the regular season. They need Jose Trevino to pick it up a little bit, but Anthony Rizzo about a 340 on base during the season. He and Giancarlo Stanton combined 63 home runs. Josh Donaldson is just a turd. He does not belong out there on the field, but as we know, Aaron Judge, since he got moved down from that leadoff spot, he had 2 home runs in that series against the Cleveland Guardians in 3 games after that, so that is massive. And for the Astros, Jose Altuve entered into Game 1 without a single hit here in the postseason. You know that that's going to reverse. Of course, Jeremy Pena has been able to do an incredible job all season long for the Astros. He had an extra base hit in the game yesterday. Yordan Alvarez, north of 400 on base. Those multiple home runs they had against the Seattle Mariners, both in big spots. That is massive. Alex Bregman at 365 on base. Kyle Tucker over 100 RBI during the regular season. So 2 very fearsome lineups, and I do think that Luis Severino, he's going to be able to hold his own. The bullpen advantage certainly lies with the Houston Astros. I mentioned those guys a few minutes ago, and with the New York Yankees, they're going to be likely relying upon Greg Weissert in a few bigger spots. Clay Holmes has been able to pitch a little bit better recently. You do like to see that along with Wandy Peralta. And under the radar, Lou Trevino, since he's gotten to New York, he's been able to post up a sub-250 ERA as well, but now they're without Lucas Luetke for this series because they added one Frankie Montas to the fold. And for Luis Severino, he's been able to do an okay job on the road. A 314 home ERA, a 322 road ERA, and on the road, he's given up about 1.1 to 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. Overall for the season, gave up about 2.7, 2.8 walks per 9 innings. Swing and miss stuff, it is still certainly there, so that is pretty encouraging to see. And just with Luis Severino in general, he's been a little bit up and down all season long. Wasn't necessarily his sharpest in that start against the Cleveland Guardians on Saturday, where he allowed 3 runs in 5 2/3 innings, but prior to that, he had given up 2 runs or fewer in 5 out of his last 6 starts, one of those coming on the road against the Houston Astros. So you've got sort of 2 ways to be able to take a look at it. I do think that Severino a little bit prone to giving up the deep ball. I do think that Valdez should get a little bit of a pinching edge, but I think that he himself probably going to be giving up some runs. So I set the Astros minus 152 on the money line. If I could get something like minus 135, minus 140 on the Astros, I would make that the DK Nation write-up. I'm sort of thinking it might be on the over if we get a 7 or less, because like I said, 7.5 or less, going to be looking at the over 8 or higher to the under. Going to be a little bit of a tough call if we get like Astros minus 150 and a 7.5 total, but I will decipher that in the morning, and I will have a DK Nation pick written up for you. I just can't give it to you right now because we don't have any numbers, and I don't want to speculate because when you assume, you make a you-know-what out of both me and you. So we will do that, but that is my handicap, Astros minus 152 and 7.5 or less, looking at the over 8 or higher to the under, and that will wrap things up for the Thursday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Ryan Rothstein. He does amazing work over there at Sports Radio WIP in the great city of Philadelphia. If you like what you're hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you've got a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter timeline at unit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM. Naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline, and the other way, that is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season. That means I'm coming at you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in.